Hello guys, welcome back to narsicloud.com. Today we're going to talk about one of the services under network in AWS, which is called Cloud Front. So what is Cloud Front and why do we need that, right? So this is a fast and reliable content delivery network service. So before we dive into the core concept of CloudFront, let's talk about the basics of what is content delivery and where do we use it, and what's the theory behind that, right? So let's take an example where you're accessing files from one of the servers in somewhere in the world, right? So let's assume that this is our web server which serves the content. It could be application content, this could be static or dynamic content, right? And then let's take one of the client machines here, client one, and let's assume that this is somewhere in North America, and this is in Europe. Let's take one more client somewhere here. So this is our client 2, right? And if we take that, this is in somewhere in Asia. So what happens when this client accesses the files from the server? It routes the request through different servers and finally it reaches out to the web server and we get the response back, right? This is a traditional approach. So how much time it would take? Let's say it's gonna take some X amount of time, right? Some X milliseconds. And if we take example here, this client 2 is accessing the content again from this same web server and we got some response. So this could be some milliseconds, right? um, so depending on where you are in the world, this time differs, the latency differs. What is latency? Latency is the amount of time that takes from ordering the request and until you get the response. So the total time is calculated as latency. If you say it's low latency, that means it's faster. You get the response fast. And if it takes a long time, then we call this high latency, right? That's the basic definition of latency. So depending on where you are in the location, this request might have some latency, and here it could have low latency, right? Mm, but how could we improve this performance? How could we reduce the latency? So likewise here, in this example, we took two clients, right? We could have many clients for our application. So Amazon provides this CDN CloudFront service, which will cache the content. Depending on your location, it maintains the files in its cache. So to cache the content, it introduced the concept called edge locations. So let's assume that this is our world, right? Let's assume that this is all our world, and it maintains edge locations in different parts of the world. So it has many edge locations. I mean, if you go to the documentation, you can see exact number that keeps changing. They keep adding these edge locations, right? So one of these, let me write the name of this, like edge location. What is edge location? This is also and they are the servers, right? And so what happens is when any client requests the content, the Amazon Web Services, what it does, it takes the content and it will cache that. It'll go to nearest edge location and then it will cache the content and then it will deliver that to the client. So when the client accesses those files, it will have its own specific URL, and when you access with that URL, what it does is the request goes to edge location first. It goes here and it checks if there are files cached for the content. If it is not, then it goes back to web server and retrieves the content and put it in edge location and give it back to the client. That happens for the first time. And let's assume that if some other client somewhere nearby access the same content, it goes to web server in the edge location, and the content will be served. It doesn't go back to all the way back to the web server, right? So it will reduce the latency, and it's faster. So this is a basic concept. That's how they improved the performance, and with a minimal latency, you'll be able to get the content. So here the term that you have to remember is edge location and the cloud front. Right, cloud front is a service, and edge location is a concept where they introduce a lot of servers in between, and to cache the content. And how much time you would want to cache this content, like how much time the TTL parameter you want to specify, you can all configure that when we create this cloud front distribution, right? So that's the basic concept of CloudFront. It will help you to cache the content and serve the content faster to its clients. We don't have to hit the web server all the time. So here in this example, I have taken this web server as an example, but this origin could be anything that will store files, that will give you those files, all right? It could be S3 bucket in AWS. It could be in any non AWS service, can be your own HTTP server. It could be anything. So all we have to do is to introduce this concept. We have to create a CloudFront distribution, which is what I'm going to show you in a minute. For that, we will use CloudFront service in AWS. So I hope this concept makes sense. It's very straightforward. So let's go back to AWS console. Let's search for CloudFront. So global content delivery network service, right? So I already have one CloudFront distribution created just for this demo. So how do you create in the first place, right? You go to create distribution, and you have two types, RTMP and the web. In this demo, I'm going to talk about the web, the cloud distribution of type web. Go to get started. So you got a lot of settings and configuration here. It's pretty straightforward. So all we have to do is we have to specify what's your origin name, and where is it, what type of origin it is, right? So when you click on this, it will show you all the available origins in AWS. So here you could select Amazon S3 buckets, elastic load balancers, media package origins, and media store containers. There are all different types of origins. So in our case, we have S3 bucket created already for this demo, and then origin path. So this is the path is specifically talk about the specific context of your files. So here it will start with, if you have some specific path in S3 bucket or in your web server anywhere, it will start with a slash, and you can give whatever the name, right? Where your files were stored. So you'll give that name. So in our case, we don't have any context path. And then leave all these other stuff defaults, and origin ID, it's automatically populated because this is the name of our S3 bucket, and it populates that by appending that with S3. And if you want, you can change that. I mean, that's fine. So you can type whatever you want there. Restrict bucket access now. So leave all these defaults: origin, connection attempts, connection timeout, how many attempts it can make. before it times out all those settings. And this is the default cache behavior settings. So remember I was talking about the cache, how much time you want to cache your content in the edge locations. So all that those configuration parameters you can specify here, and what type of requests the protocol policy you would want to allow to send the requests through CloudFront. Here you have HTTP and HTTPS, redirect HTTP to HTTPS, and HTTPS only. And these are pretty straightforward, self-explanatory stuff. Get different types of methods it will allow, and use a cache policy and origin request policy. So if you look at, so if you have any doubt, right, you can click on this information. We recommend using cache policy and origin request policy to control the cache key and origin requests, right, depending on the type of configurations. Here is called cache policy, origin request policy. So here you can specify, if you specify that, here you can create your own policy, and this is what it's talking about, which one you want to use, right? It's all settings about how you want to configure your cache. And smooth streaming, so basically it talks about live unless your server uses Microsoft Cloud Front cannot use a Microsoft server if you enable smooth streaming can. So this basically if you want to have a live stream, if you have some video um, that you want to live stream, so that's when you choose this option. But what they're saying is, if you choose that, the origin cannot be Microsoft IIS server, so it looks like it's not supporting for that. And the other option here is restrict viewer access. So sometimes the content that you have is private, you cannot make that public, right? But you would still want to share that to one of your users, right? How do you do that? So for that purpose, they provided you can create signed URLs. And what that does is it creates CloudFront signed URLs or signed cookies to access your content, right? So you provide that URL for that user, and they'll give access to that file. Only that user can access that. Compress objects automatically. These are all talking about how would you want to compress your files while being transferred from origin to clients. And this is lambda function associations. What this talks about is there are different types of events, and you can provide your lambda function arn, which will be invoked by this whenever this event happens. And here you can specify you want to include the body, and that if you include that, the lambda will receive all that information. So this is a price class distribution settings. The preferred one is use all edge locations, best performance. So what that means is AWS will try to figure out the nearest edge location of from your client. So when the client requests, it will figure out the best possible edge location and see the content exists there. Otherwise, it will fetch it and put it in there. So if you choose some other option, then there is a possibility that some of your users around the world will have high latency, because that would not use the edge locations nearby. So obviously there will be high latency. And alternate domain names. When you create a cloud distribution, it will give you the CloudFront URL with a domain name, something like this, similar to this, not exactly the same, but similar to that. But if you want to have your own CNAME, then you can type in your own CNAME here, for example, narsicloud.com, and you can access your files after that, whatever the name of your files. So that's another option you can choose. And all the SSL certificates provided by AWS, it could be default or it could be custom SSL, and supported HTTP versions. So what we can do is, now you create distribution. So to save some time, I already created distribution there. So if you go back to all I did was I left with all the default options, and then I clicked on create distribution. So if you go back here, this is what you see at the time of when you click. As soon as you click on create distribution, you see this status as being in progress or pending, and eventually you see this is deployed. So it means this cloud distribution is ready to use, right? So let me show you how does that work. So we got this URL, and um, let's try to download the file from S3 bucket without CloudFront URL and with S3 URL, right? So if we go back here to S3 bucket, S3 bucket, I uploaded a couple of files there. Let's take this guy, and here we have this S3 URL, right? Copy link address, and if you go to incognito window and open up the network tab, see how much time it takes, right? So it took 579 milliseconds first time, right? And if I access the same file with CloudFront URL, let's see how much time it takes. Go back to copy this URL and open up another incognito tab and nature web app. So this is the file we are downloading from S3 bucket using CloudFront URL. See how much time it takes. It took 150 milliseconds because this file I have downloaded it already before. It would have been there in the edge location already, so that's why it took only 150 milliseconds. But here if you look up the direct S3 URL, it took 579 milliseconds. See how much difference is there. So it is too fast because it's going to edge location. If you click on this again, it's 126 milliseconds. So that's the difference you would see just with this file. But assume that this is if you use this concept with a lot of static content that your application relies on, how much time it saves for the users, and how performance it will be, right? It will give you a very good experience, user experience of your application. So that's the concept of the cloud front. So if you look up here, there are not many options here. You can quickly explore this monitoring. For example, if you want to see what happened on your CloudFront distribution metrics, you can see the requests and errors. If you had seen any data transfer, how much data has been transferred. So all that it's a basic CloudWatch, the type of CloudWatch dashboards, and you can set up alarms as well. So what it looks like is you select your distribution and metric requests, the type of metric, and here you can configure some of requests to greater than equal to so and so. You can send the notification to the topic. So here you can, if you have SNS topic created, you can select that and you create alarm. So that is one option. You can see the logs here. So these are all some of the reports and analytics section, and this is one of the important stuff. So remember I was talking about the signed URLs. So to create a signed URL, you have to create that through origin access identity. So when you create OAI, it will let you to create signed URL, and you'll give that to it will give restricted access to private content in Amazon S3. So yeah, that's all about CloudFront service, and see if you can apply this to your applications, whenever you want to cache the content. It could be static or dynamic content, and that will definitely improve performance a lot, and give better user experience for your application. That's all, guys, for today, and I'll come up with another service in the next video. And so far, just to summarize, in the narsicloud channel, I've been talking about all the basic concepts of the network under VPC, EC2, and subnets and gateways. All those foundational concepts I've completed, and please go through those concepts before you proceed with the upcoming videos, because they are very, very important to understand. That's the basic foundation of the whole the cloud system. So go through that, and I'll post more videos on the other services, and we'll get to the point, and you will be able to use the cloud, and become expert in that, right? See you guys, and please subscribe to the channel. If you like this video, please click on like button, and let me know if you have any questions. Please post your comments, and I will address them as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye.